The moment you finally understood yourself was the moment you stopped being able to move. Not slowly, not gradually, all at once. Like a machine that ran hot for years and then just went quiet. No warning, no breakdown, just silence where the engine used to be. You did the work. That is the part nobody talks about. You were not avoiding it. You went inward. You sat with things most men never touch. You read, you reflected, you pulled back layers that took years to build. And something shifted. Something real. A moment where the noise stopped and you saw clearly, maybe for the first time, who you actually were underneath all the performance. You expected that to launch you. You expected clarity to feel like fuel, like finally having the answer would mean finally being able to move. Instead, you went still. The goals you were chasing started to look hollow. The career, the ambition, the milestones you had mapped out, they did not disappear. They just stopped meaning anything. You would sit down to work and feel nothing. Not resistance, not fear. Just a flat, gray nothing where the drive used to live. And the worst part was that you could not explain it. Because you were not sad. You were not burned out in the way people talk about burnout. You were just empty, functioning, present, empty. If you have felt that, stay with me. Because what happened to you is not a malfunction, it is a process. And understanding it is the only way through it. If this channel is where you come to understand what is actually happening inside you, subscribe now. What we cover here is not motivation, it is the mechanics underneath it. Here is what almost no one tells you about awakening. The clarity it brings is not free. It has a cost, and the cost is everything you built before it. Most men spend the first decade or two of their adult lives constructing what you might call a functional identity. A version of themselves designed to navigate the world, to earn approval, to avoid the specific kind of pain they learned to fear early on. That identity has ambitions attached to it, goals, a definition of success, a picture of what winning looks like, and for years that picture is the engine. It tells you what to want. It tells you what counts. It gets you up in the morning. Then comes the moment of clarity, and in that moment you see the engine for what it is. You see that the ambition was not really about the goal. It was about managing a feeling. Fear of being seen as weak. Fear of ending up like someone you watched fail. Fear that if you stopped achieving, you would discover there was nothing underneath worth caring about. The drive was real. The fuel powering it was not what you thought. And once you see that, the engine loses its charge. Not because the work was wrong, not because the goals were worthless, but because you can no longer run on a fuel you have seen through. The mechanism is exposed. It stops working the moment you understand it. This is the part most people misread as depression. It is not depression. It is the specific disorientation of a man who has outgrown the version of himself that was keeping him moving. But here is where it gets uncomfortable. And this is the part that will either keep you watching or make you want to close the tab. You think the problem is that you lost your motivation. You do not have it yet. That is the second wound, and it cuts deeper than the first. The emptiness you are feeling is not the absence of your old drive. It is the gap between who you were and who you have not yet become. Most men in this state spend months, sometimes years, trying to get back to the version of themselves that was functional. They try to manufacture the old hunger. They push. They discipline themselves back into the grind. And it works partially for a while. They start moving again. They start producing again. They tell themselves they are back. But the emptiness is still there underneath. Because they have not crossed the gap. They have just learned to perform across it. That performance is exhausting in a specific way. It is not the exhaustion of working hard. It is the exhaustion of pretending the ground is solid when you can feel it is not. And it accumulates quietly until one day it does not stay quiet anymore. The men who never address this do not collapse dramatically. They just gradually become harder versions of themselves. Efficient, productive, closed. They build things, they reach things, and they wonder, somewhere beneath all of it, why none of it lands the way they thought it would. The men who do address it have to be willing to do something that goes against everything they were trained to do. They have to stop trying to fix the emptiness. They have to sit in it long enough to understand what it is actually telling them, not passively, not collapsing into it, sitting in it with attention. There is a difference between a man who is paralyzed and a man who is waiting with intention. The paralyzed man is just trying not to feel it. The man who is waiting with intention is asking a different question. Not when does this end, but what is this showing me that I have not been willing to see? That question requires something most men are never taught. It requires the ability to feel something uncomfortable without immediately acting to make it stop. Not because action is wrong, because premature action in this state is just another way of running from the signal. The signal, when you finally stop long enough to hear it, is almost always about the same thing: identity. Specifically, the gap between who you have been performing and who you actually are when no one is watching and nothing is at stake. That gap is where the emptiness lives. And it does not close by working harder inside the old identity. It only closes by building something more honest. If you are still here, what I am about to say in the next section is the part most channels never reach. Subscribe so you do not lose it. Now here is where most men make the next mistake. They understand the gap. They accept that something needs to change. They feel, briefly, the relief of finally having a framework for what they have been living. And then they wait for the new motivation to arrive. They treat it like a package that is coming. They sit back. They give themselves permission to rest inside the understanding. And the weeks go by and nothing comes. The reason nothing comes is that the new version of you is not delivered. It is built. And it is built through a very specific kind of attention that most men have never practiced. Not discipline, not routine. Attention. The practice of noticing what actually engages you, not what you think should engage you, not what makes sense on paper, not what other men seem energized by. What actually draws something out of you when you are not performing for anyone. This is harder than it sounds because most men have spent so long orienting toward external signals that they have almost no practice reading internal ones. They know when something impresses other people. They have almost no data on what moves them when nothing external is at stake. The practice is simple, but it requires honesty that is genuinely uncomfortable. For some period of time, you pay attention to what you are drawn to when there is no audience, not what you wish you were drawn to, not what would make a good story. What actually pulls your attention when no one is watching and nothing is on the line? You notice it without judging it, without asking whether it is practical or impressive or scalable. You just notice it, and you follow it a small distance, not a commitment, just a small distance, and you see what happens. What you are looking for is a quality of engagement that does not feel like the old drive. The old drive had urgency in it, pressure, a grinding forward momentum. What you are looking for feels quieter than that, more like recognition than ambition, more like remembering something than discovering something new. It does not push you, it pulls you. And when you are in it, time moves differently, not faster or slower, differently. The self-consciousness goes quiet. You are just there, doing the thing, and the doing is enough. That quality is not mystical. It is a specific psychological signal. It means you have found something that engages the part of you that was never performing, the part that existed before the identity got built. When you find it, it does not feel like motivation in the old sense. It feels like alignment. And alignment is the thing that the emptiness was always pointing toward, now. Here is where we go deeper. Because alignment is real, but it is not enough. And this is the part that separates the men who rebuild from the men who drift. Understanding yourself is not the same as understanding the world you are moving through. And the world you are moving through does not care about your internal clarity. It operates on its own logic. People want things. They say other things. They reward behaviors that serve them, and they remove access from behaviors that do not. That is not cynical. That is just accurate. The man who has done the internal work but has not developed the ability to read external reality clearly is going to walk back into the world with his new alignment and get eaten, not by enemies, by the simple fact that he is operating with a map of how people should behave instead of a map of how they actually behave. The men who come out of this process and actually build something real are the ones who combine the internal honesty with external literacy. They know what moves them. And they know how the room actually works. They do not perform, they do not chase, they do not need to explain themselves to people who are not paying attention. They move with the understanding that what people say and what people respond to are almost never the same thing. This is not manipulation, it is clarity. The ability to read what is actually happening in a room, in a relationship, in a dynamic, without the distortion of what you wish was happening. Most men, especially men who have done significant internal work, have a blind spot here. They become very good at seeing themselves clearly and remain very bad at seeing others clearly. Because seeing others clearly means accepting things about human behavior that are uncomfortable after you have worked so hard to become more honest yourself. People are not mostly moved by what is right. They are mostly moved by what they feel. They are not mostly persuaded by what is true. They are persuaded by what resonates with what they already believe. This does not make them bad. It makes them human. And the man who understands this does not become cynical. He becomes effective. He stops wasting energy trying to convince people through logic who can only be reached through something else. He stops being surprised when good work goes unnoticed. He learns to place the work where it can be seen by the people who are actually looking. He stops needing the room to understand him. He just moves through the room clearly. That shift from needing to be understood to simply being clear is one of the quietest and most significant changes a man can make. It does not announce itself. You do not wake up one day and feel it dramatically. You just notice over time that you are less affected by the things that used to derail you. Someone's opinion stops landing the way it used to. A missed opportunity stops feeling like a verdict. You keep moving, not because you are suppressing the feeling, because you have stopped needing the outcome to confirm who you are. That is what the emptiness was always trying to create the conditions for. Not a new set of goals, not a more efficient version of the old ambition. A different relationship to all of it. One where you are building because you are building, not because the building is going to finally make you feel like enough. If you have made it this far, you already know this channel is different. Subscribe, not for this video, for what comes next. This is the part I want you to sit with. Most men who go through what you have been through come out the other side believing the hard part is over. The emptiness is behind them. The clarity is real. The new direction is forming. They feel, for the first time in a long time, like they know where they are going. And that feeling is real. Do not dismiss it. But here is what is also true. The pattern that created the first identity does not disappear because you saw through it. It goes quiet. It waits. And the moment you start building something new, it starts running the same program underneath the new project. The same hunger for external confirmation. The same fear of being seen as not enough. The same tendency to measure the work by the response rather than by what it actually is. You will not notice it at first, because the new work feels different. It is aligned. It is honest. It came from the right place, so you trust it. And you should trust it. But you also need to watch it. Because the old machinery does not retire. It adapts. It finds new things to attach to. And one day, if you are not paying attention, you will realize that the new identity you built to be more honest than the last one has become its own kind of performance. That is not a reason to despair. It is a reason to stay awake. The work is not finished when the emptiness lifts. The work is ongoing. The difference is that now you know what to look for. Drop a comment with one word that describes what you are in the middle of right now. Not what you want to be in the middle of, where you actually are. That one word will tell you more than a paragraph would. The emptiness was not a malfunction. It was a calibration, a forced stillness that would not end until you stopped trying to outrun it and started paying attention to what it was showing you. You did not lose your drive. You lost the version of your drive that was running on the wrong fuel. What comes after is quieter, less urgent, but it does not run out. Because it is not being powered by fear of what happens if you stop. It is being powered by what you actually are when nothing is at stake. That is a different machine. It runs differently. It builds differently. And it does not need the same things the old one needed. Here is the question worth sitting with, not answering, sitting with. If you stripped away every goal that was about how you would look to someone else, every ambition that was really about proving something, every plan that was built on the foundation of not wanting to end up a certain way, what would you still want to build? If something landed for you in this video, hit the like, not as a favor, because something in here was worth the time and you know it. You already know who this is for. There is someone in your life who has gone quiet in the way this video describes. Not sad, not lazy, just hollow in a way they cannot explain. They have been grinding through it or disappearing into it, and they do not have a framework for what is happening to them. They will not search for this on their own. They would not know what to search for. Send this to them, not with a message. Just send it. They will know why you did. Stay on this channel. What we go into next is how the pattern that created the emptiness in the first place gets reconstructed in the new identity without you noticing, and why the men who catch it early build differently from the ones who do not. The moment you finally understood yourself was the moment you stopped being able to move. That sentence hit differently the first time you heard it. And if you go back now, it means something else entirely. Because the stopping was not the problem. The stopping was the answer. You just did not know yet what the question was. What happens to a man who does all of this, who crosses the gap, who builds from alignment, who reads the room clearly, and then realizes the room itself was the wrong room all along? That is the next one.